Before we move on to have Lazaro Kanata present the different sections of Guampedia and the resources that we have there, this project of going into Guampedia to audit and review, we've been online for 13 years. And, you know, history unfolds every day, technology develops. And so I want to have Shannon Murphy, our editor emeritus, who kind of spearheaded this project, to give an overview of the kind of update and enhancement that we were able to achieve in this project. Shannon?
Off a day. Happy to be here. I don't have the whole list. I didn't know if it was going to be on a slide there, but about all the things that we did this past, how long has it been, Rita? Like 6 months, I think. We decided to, since Guampedia has been online for 13 years, and actually some of the entries in Guampedia were even created before that, before we went online, because we had to create, you know, the initial content for Guampedia. And so starting in 2005, but we did do so what we did was we chose the entries that are, the oldest entries, because we knew that they would need updating the most, plus the ones that are very well used, or, you know, that are where we have a lot of traffic in them, those sections. And what we started with 5 things. One was we looked at, well, we started actually first with the lesson plans, because as everybody is teaching online, we thought it important that they we had those all, you know, because they were actually written for the classroom, face-to-face learning. So once we all got shut down, we thought it'd be best if we can like really make sure those are all usable for teachers online. So we had to just change some of the things. We just adapted them as best we could. And then we got into the, I think it was 7 sections for Guampedia. Sorry, I get things a little bit, I'm getting a little forgetful. But the 5 things that we did in those 7 sections was we looked at all the photos. For each entry, there's usually photos that go with it. And we actually have a lot more photos than what you see in Guampedia, because people have given us photos or access to their photos, and we've scanned them and we have them in our library. And, you know, it's an online library. Whenever we have a new entry or we're going to update entries, we can go through those and find some new photos to use. So we're not just using the same photos all the time. And that we found a new program that we can add the captions. And this is what Rita was talking about, the new technology as it becomes available, it improves Guampedia. So we were able to put, you know, more information when you're looking at the photos. Before, you had to click on them and then go to another place to read who owns the photos and, you know, some information about it. Then we looked at the for further reading section. Each entry in Guampedia has at the end of the entry, it says for further reading, and then it'll have like some other resources about that topic. And so we wanted to make sure that each one of those was still available, because a lot of things were like links to other things that are online. And then it turns out that some of them aren't there anymore. So we updated all those and made sure everything was, you know, usable and findable. And then we worked on making all the entries current, because there's some that, like I said, that were written earlier that were maybe, say for instance, about the examples that come to my mind are about, like we have an entry about each of the different the orders of nuns and priests, and some of them aren't there anymore. Like we have one on the Carmelite nuns of Guam. They've been here on Guam for 50 years. And so when that entry was written by Polly Eric Forbes, he described, you know, the current situation. And now that the convent is closed and they left Guam, the remaining ones that were still alive left Guam. So that was, you know, that, and like which birds have gone extinct since then, or, you know, there's just so many things. We had to read every entry carefully to see if it needed to be updated. And so we've done that. There's also was a problem with links in Guampedia that were like, you click on it and then it says the site is not here anymore. So we had to remove the ones, and we added in a lot of new links so that if you're reading something, you can find easily find related information, and just that took a lot of work. And then the fifth thing that we did was we looked at the format of every entry in Guampedia and just tried to, you probably won't notice this, but it's just all stuff to do with the way things are abbreviated or spelled, or, there's been some changes in the Chamorro spellings. And so we want to make sure that those were up to date. We're going to have to do this again because they're going to change. I think that the commission is going to change the names of all the southern villages to be more consistent with the Chamorro spelling. So we're going to be working on this for some time yet. We have I think we've completed about 512 entries, and we still have like 700 more to go. So we're going to keep working on this. And this is an ongoing process anyway, because like if somebody that we've written about had passed away, then we would have to go in there and change to and show their death date and make everything past tense and stuff. So this is always something we're doing with Guampedia. Besides adding new entries, we're also have to keep everything in there up to date. So it'll be useful to you as teachers and students. So that's about it. I think Rita said we had 3,800 images, and we're continually getting new ones. People have, donate things to us. And so it's the back end part of Guampedia that you don't see is is very active and interesting to work on. So if there's
Yeah.
any questions, yeah, we'd love to hear from you. If you have anything that you're curious about or want to correct us on, please do so.
Yes, absolutely, Shannon. Our content, we definitely take it through fact checking process and the peer review, but we can never claim to be perfect. So any corrections, anything, and that's one thing that being an online resource is we monitor our emails and contacting us. So it's, people are able to reach out to us, and we'll definitely respond right away, not maybe immediately, but we definitely are welcome to hearing feedback from our visitors. And so now with to go take us through the different sections of Guampedia and how it can be applied in the classroom. He's actually literally almost grown up with Guampedia, using it as a resource as a student since middle school. And he's been working with Guampedia since 2019. He's a program coordinator, but he's also a teacher. He's been teaching high school in the classroom, so he's been able to really use the resources firsthand. And so Lazaro Kanata is going to take us through the different sections and how you can utilize it, not just necessarily in the subject of history or Chamorro studies, but in different subjects. Lazaro?
Okay, thank you, Rita. Like I said, my name is Lazaro Kanata. I'm a program coordinator at Guampedia and also a Guam Studies teacher for seniors at Father Doña Memorial School. So I've been working with Guampedia for a long time, and I've used Guampedia for even longer. And so hopefully through this presentation, I'll be able to give you some ideas on how you can possibly use Guampedia within your classroom, whether you're teaching Guam Studies or Chamorro language or English or physics or any of the other subjects. So we're going to go ahead and start with this front page. This is the main page of Guampedia. And as you can see, we have different places where you can start off with. You have 3 different selections to choose from that have different categories on there. The primary way in which people would usually go through Guampedia is through the top right-hand corner, where you can search for entries in media. Just by typing in any keywords, they'll show you any relevant source material that we have on Guampedia for those topics. But if you would like to just go through, you don't really know the right keywords to use or it's not coming up, another place you can check out is our categories. So this is one of those drop-down menu items, one of those menu items on the front page. And with categories, it shows you a variety of different places that you can check out. Here we have birth and childhood practices, Chamorro folk tales, divisions of labor. And these categories are found underneath the Imansamoru category, right? So if we click the Imansamoru category, this one right here, we can then go and see that it's broken up into further categories. And then clicking on that, you can see even more. So this is a really good way to get an understanding of what kind of material we have without going through each individual entry. And as we go through the entries, we'll see that we can apply them in numerous ways. We'll go to this one first. So if features of entries, all of the entries here are scholarly, peer-reviewed, and fact-checked. So we really want to make sure that we push that these entries are backed by the scholars of Chamorro and Mariana's history and culture, right? They provide relatable information and reliable information on various different topics. And as you can see, they contain pertinent photos as well as the reference page listed below. So like what Shannon had said before, we'd gone through as part of Guampedia's audit of all these different entries to update captions and make them more visible and more usable on the main Guampedia page, right? So on each entry, you'll see all those relevant photos. Applications of these entries. So they find a way to provide students with source material to supplement their lessons by showing an entry on like an individual in history or an event. You can provide even more information to any topic that you're covering that is also featured on Guampedia. It's a really good way for students to start their research, both by understanding as much as they can in a very like broad overview, looking at the entry, and then also through our for further reading. So this is one of those things that isn't made so known that you can use Guampedia for, but in the bottom there's a for further reading section which acts like a reference page. And so here you can see all the different sources that were used to compile that entry. What I've used this in my classroom is I've used this as a way to teach the difference between secondary and primary resources. So going through them and then looking at the type of source that it is. And then also using it as a way to further and direct future research on these topics. So by going to, like, for example, Hurrao, you would go to the bottom and then you would see all the different sources that talk about Hurrao that were used for this entry. And this is a really good way to direct students to checking out all the numerous other places on Guam or online that have relevant information about the island. Moving on, the big thing that we look at is the educators portal. And the educators portal is really our place for all teachers. I go through here a lot, and it's broken up into a number of different categories, different places that you can look at. One of those being the lesson plans. So here for the lesson plans, we worked with various teachers in the Department of Education to develop lesson plans that utilize Guampedia's material and Guampedia's content. So it's a really good place to have everything all together. Here we even have lesson plans for culturally sustaining education and more niche lesson plans that work directly with certain applications on Guampedia that we'll go through later. Looking at the lesson plans, they're all divided by grade level and by subject. So like what we said before, Guampedia isn't just a resource for Guam studies teachers or Chamorro language teachers, but it can be used for a variety of different subjects. It's just about how creatively we can apply those lessons and that content on Guampedia to your classroom. We also want to expand the use of Guampedia's lesson plans, not just in high school or middle school, but also in the elementary and higher education courses, as you can see here on the left. Okay. All of these are links that you can just click on, and then it takes you directly to a lesson plan. So we'll go ahead and click on the lesson plan for understanding culture under culturally sustaining education, just to go through what each lesson plan looks like. All the lesson plans follow the same format, so it's easy to implement in class, and you know exactly what you're going to be looking for and what to expect when you open one, right? So they always begin with giving credit where credit is due to the author of the lesson plan. We also have a printable version of each lesson plan if you want to take that with you into the class. Maybe your Wi-Fi isn't doing so well. We have a broad overview of the lesson. We go over the subject, grade level, time required, materials required, and then if applicable, related background reading and related links to Guampedia. Another big thing that we have is the Guam standards for education. So it really does a lot of the work for developing these lesson plans for you, and it gives you an idea of how you can use these lesson plans in your classroom, and also how you can develop your own lesson plans using the similar template. Um, Here, and as you can see, we also have various links throughout the lesson plan that look not only at Guampedia's content, but also the content of our partners. So always giving credit where credit is due and trying to weave together as many community partners as we can to really provide a well-rounded holistic education for our island students. Here we can see that it goes even further. We have the objectives for the lesson, questions or assessments, and then even procedure. So super detailed, super thorough, looks at how you can apply this to the classroom. I've used a few of the lesson plans in my own class. And what's really good is going through them, you can see how each one can be fit for your specific class or your demographic. So maybe you want to use a high school lesson in a middle school class. It's totally doable because everything is made available on this one page for lesson plans so that you can see what questions you want to take out or add in, how you can direct it towards the lesson that you're teaching or the class that you're teaching or the speed of the student. Okay, this brings us to our next section, the Micronesia milestones. So this is one of the first in these sections on Guampedia that I think have really helped to advance the learning in my class and diversify my students, their access to certain information, and also diversifying how they can apply their knowledge. So the Micronesia milestones is a timeline on Guampedia that selects that features certain milestones within all of Micronesia. So no longer just Guam or the CNMI, but also other places like Palau or Pohnpei or Yap or Chuuk. So this is really good for those students that maybe live on Guam and are born and raised on Guam, but are also culturally connected to their home islands of Chuuk or Palau. It's a really good way to showcase these students' individual histories and cultures. What's really interesting about this timeline is that it juxtaposes Micronesia milestones with world events, with blue indicating Micronesia and purple indicating world events. The timeline spans about 4,000 years of history, beginning in 2500 BCE and ending in 2016 CE, with the most recent one being the election of the first female governor of Guam, Governor Luli Angarao. How we can apply this timeline is really interesting. The timelines usually work within the classroom as a way to show a very broad and very far-looking understanding of where things are available on where things happen over the course of history. And this is really good because especially with teaching Micronesia history, we know Micronesia history, but we don't really know how that plays out or how that looks in the broad overview of the globe's history or the world's history, right? So these timelines can be used in social studies classes to begin teaching Micronesian history, introducing the history of our islands into the classroom to help, ground those students in culturally relevant and geographically relevant material. It's a great way for students to explore events in their island's history. They can just go through the timeline. It's pretty long, so they won't get bored. They won't get bored too quick. They can really just explore the page as much as they can, and it's really great. And it can be used as a jumping off point for historical reports. So maybe you give them like a time frame. Like I want to see something from 1500 CE to 1600 CE, and the students can then go through and then click on and explore all the different events that have happened in that time. For more advanced classes, though, this timeline can be used to illustrate cause and effect relationship between world events and the region. So in this specific one, the specific screenshot, we have the Council of Trent in 1545 to 1563. And this was a ecumenical council by the Catholic Church to address the Protestant Reformation. So the Catholic Church, understanding that they were now competing with a separate offshoot of the religion, really wanted to push for more evangelization. And then in 1565, we have Miguel Legazpi claiming the Marianas for Spain as part of Spain's effort to not only expand their reach through the markets and their reach economically, but also the Catholic Church's reach as well. So upon Miguel Lopez claiming Marianas for Spain was also the beginning of an establishment of a Spanish colony that would eventually have Catholic missions here as well. This also has this section in particular has a pre-made lesson plan as well by Terry Paris, who serves as one of Guampedia's board members. And it's a really great way to implement the lesson plan implement the timeline into your own class. It's a really good jumping off point, like I said, where you can get some ideas on how you can use this lesson plan in a variety of different classes. Also, they contain the same format, subject, grade level, time required, materials required, and the Common Core standards. The next section is the people of Pacific cultures, pop cultures. This section is really interesting because it once again works to, it works to bringing together all the different islands of the Pacific, right? Helping to expand Guampedia's reach, not just with Guam history and culture, but trying to form those connections with islands all throughout Oceania. Here you can see there's a digital map in the front, on the front page that shows the different island groupings. So Micronesia on the top, Melanesia right below it, and then Polynesia taking up that triangle on the right. And then we have links to each of the islands that make up those regions. There you go. They contain write-ups on the islands that make up each region. So nice write-ups, pretty detailed, that look at the island's history and culture and politics. They build on world history and geography courses. So if you're teaching a section on Oceania, this is a really good place for the students to visit. And they also introduce students to other Pacific islands. So really focusing on the fact that we are connected through Oceania, that the ocean isn't really, it's not a barrier that keeps us from connecting, but rather a highway that connects our people through this shared history and geography. The next section is Voices of Our Elders. So this section in Guampedia really takes to the idea of the oral history traditions of the people of Guam and the Marianas. So oral history is a very important part of our history. Prior to the Spanish coming to Guam, oral history was really the main way we would pass on information and knowledge, not just with the history, but also with traditional techniques and traditional skills. And it's something that we want to push for, especially today, this intergenerational exchange. So the features of a Voice of Our Elders is that it's a collection of videos that speak to various aspects of history and culture. And they span numerous topics, from life in Sumai to the explanation of Chamorro proverbs. They contain articles on the importance of our mañana and our people's oral history traditions. How we can apply the Voices of Our Elders into the classroom is through the teaching culture, values, and history through the lives of actual individuals who have lived through these events. So a big thing that we get with history when teaching history is that it seems so far removed from us because we're reading it from the lens of a textbook, or we're reading it through some publication or some article. What Voices of Our Elders hopes to do and helps to do is bring that human element back into the classroom by giving firsthand accounts and interviews of these elders that speak more to the human experience of these events, right? They help to deestablish the notion that oral histories are not legitimate historical sources, right? Because we want to always defer to our elders when looking at our history, our collective history. Lessons that you create from this can focus on having students emulate the examples of these videos and seek out their own elders for knowledge. So within my own class, one assignment that I had them do last year was to find an elder that was born either during the time of the war or before the war, and just ask them a set of questions. Not only were the students able to get responses from their elders, but they all said that they were able to, talk to their elders or their grandparents or their aunties, their uncles in ways that they normally wouldn't in the daily life. They were able to ask more questions, deep questions, and they learned a lot of facts about them that they just didn't know. And that's what we want to help to promote, is this sharing of stories and experiences between the elders and the youth. Um, and so a big thing really is that as much as that's an important thing for us, some people either don't have that strong connection with their elders, or some of their elders may have passed away. And so the voice of our elders helps to provide that, even for people that are living in the States or people that, like I said, don't have that connection with their elders anymore. Um, so we'll go ahead and watch a quick video. This is Voice of Our Elders, Tautau Sumai, and it features Guadalupe Wesley, Maria Perez, and Juan Guzman as they recount their experiences with Sumai. And these were interviews done by Dr. James Perez Bernes when he was doing his research. So we'll go ahead and look at that. For thousands of years, before there was even written language, our cultural knowledge was passed down from elder to youth, the telling of stories. We gathered around fires, canoe huts, and in eating circles, where our manana passed on what they've learned and experienced in their well-lived lives. It was through this simple intergenerational storytelling that our culture grew and flourished, and it's through this same interaction that we continue to traverse this growing and changing world as well. This short video captures the unique experiences of three survivors, Guadalupe Wesley, Maria Perez, and Juan Guzman, as they recount their lives growing up in the village of Suma to Dr. James Perez Bernes, a direct descendant of Maria Perez. While their stories may be simple, we witness as the deepest parts of our culture, its foundational values. These values help within our culture to find a thriving place of the recount their experience.
Okay, it is very important before the war because that's the what do you call it, harbor into the ocean that coming in, and the seaplane. That's why they got that seaplane landing down the Pan American landing spot. The living is good. Suma is a rich village throughout the island because we got everything down there. We can make soap. Go fishing, go crab hunting, coconut crab. Then the old people, they used to go out and harvest this pagang and tapon and preserve it, salt it, and bring it to Agane.
We, as people of the Chimay, are very fortunate because of the sea. There are so many food that you could catch in the sea.
How would you describe the people of Sumai, the community? What kind of people are they?
Oh, they help each other. When they go out and fish on the sea, whatever fish they catch, they give it to the neighbors. There's no sending at that time. They just give you. And if you have something to, you can give it to your neighbor. Like in Sumai, and they go to catch this and a half, that's how big. They never get the gun done, the skill to sell them. Share to the neighbors, because some of the neighbors, don't go catching. So you share them to the neighbors.
People down there are very close to each other, and we're all happy. We get everything down there.
We were moved from Akla. We traveled all the way that night to Menengu. No, not Menengu, no. Fena. So we stayed overnight at Fena. Then the following day, for another night, that's the time when we start, and we keep on going like some of the old people, like Selena, they were being carried. My father too. We each one have so many things to carry. But see, my father goes back and says, carry some of the things because my mother cannot, as I said, because as often cannot walk anymore. So my father has to carry him all the way over to the knee. The federal doesn't permit us to go back to school because they're going to condemn the land for naval station or what you call that.
They won't let us stay, but they let us go back and take everything that belongs to us, whatever we can take out.
Or we feel awful and we get mad because this resident, this Lieutenant Zayda, came over to the house and was telling her mother how much money she get from the land that usually is just a small house. And my mother said, how much did she get? The man said, $2 and some cents. And my mother said, and what are you going to write to go to pay for that? I mean, to change that check. And the man said, I'm going to look for a right now. Then, you know, when you hire a taxi to take you, it costs more than your check.
When you came to Santa Rita, was it just all housing? Was there anything else in the village, or like were there any stores or church or nothing?
Not at that moment. Until later on, about maybe a year or 5 years later, that when we got this Alcantara store and Felix tourist store.
What was the general feeling about losing Sumai? How did people feel about that?
I feel bad about it. I feel very bad about it. Because the place I was born, the place I raised up, I get raised for 8 years, and I get used to the area, and I still call Sumai my home.
Our elders are the essential origins of knowledge and wisdom within our culture. Our Manyaina drew from their own experiences and pass on the foundational values of Chamorro culture. Their voices may differ, their stories may change, but their lessons remain the same. It is through listening to their stories that we, the next generation, truly become a part of our living and growing culture. We, in turn, become the latest generation in a thousands of years long tradition, passing knowledge from elder to youth. You got to listen to the voices. Okay, so as you can see, so this is just an example one of the videos that we have on Guampedia that really speak to this the voices of our elders. And as you can see, it provides so much more context to the experiences of history. Not only are we teaching the students, you know, the facts about what happened, but we're also teaching students about the experiences. And the experiences are often, sadly, the parts that go unaddressed, or they aren't done true justice through the textbook or text. So this is a really good way to diversify your classroom and bring that experience into it. And, you know, hopefully inspire your own students to reach out to their grandparents or their parents or their aunties or their uncles to gain some of that wisdom that the elders have accumulated through like, decades of just living on this earth. Within Guampedia's Voice of Our Elders are a number of other videos. We don't just make available the ones that Guampedia produces, but also ones that we've accumulated and acquired through various partnerships with different organizations and different groups and different agencies. And these are all up for browsing. You can look at them, you can view them. We even have the Culture of Connecting sessions from last year where we discussed the wartime experience of our elders and how that played out in various aspects of their lives. The next section is our interpretive essays. So this is a little bit different from the entries that we discussed at the way beginning. And the interpretive essays, they're a section, they have a whole number. There's 28 of these interpretive essays, and they cover various different topics. They're essays from different authors, and these are opinionated pieces that speak on various subjects ranging from cultural values to political status. They're not, they don't undergo the same rigorous, review to make sure, but because they are interpretive essays, but they can be applied in a number of ways in the classroom, right? So they can be used as examples of argumentative writing. So if you're teaching English or composition or literature, this is a good way for teachers to show how what tools you can use to show an author how they support their thesis through the use of facts and other supporting evidence. They can also serve as supplementary material in teaching reading comprehension. So when you're like teaching your students, that reading comprehension, or you want them to read, maybe instead of just letting them read an article that they find on CNN or Fox News, but they can even use these interpretive essays as ways to help, once again, bring Guam experience and Chamorro experience and the Marianas experience into the classroom, regardless of the subject, because this is a really good way to connect students with the course material, and that should help to inspire them to learn more and see the beauty of education, the beauty of the knowledge that we have available. The next section we have is that we're covering is e-publications. And our e-publications are they're PDF versions of different publications, so not just Guam, but also like what I said, we've partnered with a lot of people. We've made really good connections with different agencies, and we have here like things like the Guam Recorder. We have from 1924 to 1979 with Dr. Robert Underwood's lecture series. And a big one we have is the MHC pages, the Mariana History Conference pages. The features of this publication is they contain a number of academic papers, especially with the Marianas History Conference, academic papers, articles, and theses that are free to view. And they cover various topics. So you can do culture, war experiences, archaeological findings, and decolonization. So once again, these don't just limit themselves to just culture or history, but also they can have overlap in the science fields. So a really good way to bring that into your classes. You can use these by having students read them as academic resources to further their own research reports and projects. So taking their projects to the next level by seeing academic work, scholarly work at the height of academic writing, right? Providing these clear examples for students that they can emulate and hopefully achieve throughout the course of their academic career. And they give students an idea of how they can apply their course knowledge. So a big issue that we have, right, with motivating our students is that we tell them that this is important for them to learn, but we don't give them an outlet for them to share that knowledge. Usually the projects that they create live and die within the classroom. And here we have an example of a way in which we can have students self-publish by taking the information that they have, whether it's on something for the class and they can take it outside of the class, or maybe you do this over the course of your whole course. You can have them take that information, take it to the next level, include more resources, more sources, more interviews, maybe even conduct their own studies, and then present them at places like the Marianas History Conference, where hopefully, their publications can also be made available on Guampedia. That's what we really want to push, is for our students to take ownership over their history and their culture, and to motivate themselves and to get inspired to contribute to that body of knowledge. because throughout their academic career, they keep relying on the same body of knowledge, right? The information that they're reading and taking, and then for them to contextualize that and to give back to that body of knowledge speaks to the highest form of appreciation for education. Moving on, we have our Guampedia newsletters. And so the Guampedia newsletters is it's a project that we started, and we have now been very consistent with producing one newsletter every month, right? So this section in Guampedia contains all the newsletters that we've created. So you don't need to, if you miss a month, you're like out. No, you can always look back through 2020 or 2019 and 2021 to stay updated with all these newsletters. Our newsletters are published every month to reflect the various events and topics that each month contains. And this isn't just the events that happen within that month historically, but also those events that are happening currently. And they also promote a number of our partners and their projects. So a really good way, if you go through the newsletters, it's a really good way to explore not just Guampedia's content, but also a number of different organizations and communities that are doing similar things with Guam's history and culture. As we move on, applications of Guampedia's newsletters in the classroom. They can be used to help give some ideas in creating that course content that is reflective of local milestones. So on the left-hand side, we can see the November 2020 issue with the front page being the right to vote on Guam. And in November 2020, that was also the time for the election, it's election season. And so we felt that having an article that highlights the right to vote, right, a broad history of the right to vote for the people of Guam would be especially poignant that month. And so if you're teaching within a month, like maybe it's right now it's August, you can go and look at our August newsletters from 2019 and 2020 and this year to get some ideas for different milestones that happened within the Marianas and within Guam and ways that you can incorporate those milestones into the classroom to have a teaching moment. As you can see also within the picture on the left, we've linked as much as we could to places within Guampedia or places outside of Guampedia. So these links help to create an interactive teaching tool where you can let students look at one newsletter or a few newsletters and then just really like explore Guampedia through it, right? We always want to be able to link back to Guampedia to highlight the content there, right? To show that, yes, this is the information that we have, but there's so much more if you just click on the entries below, right? Or the entries that are highlighted. They show various information in ways that are different from typical academic papers. So usually when assigning work, we want to give students the chance to write in an academic setting, right? We want their work to look very neat, very clean, and very organized. But a really good way to switch that up is to show them something like the Guampedia newsletter, to show them ways that you can still write historically and write academically, but in a way that's not typical of like a paper or an assignment. It can be used to help engage students who are more visual learners, right? They can see how they can use, they can see how different information can be portrayed. So here's some examples of two newsletters that we did. This is March 2021 and May 2021. So once again, really highlighting that unique and different way in which information is put out. So on the left side, March 2021 is March is the Chamorro Heritage Month. And so big one that we wanted to do was one milestone that happened for the Chamorro people within the 7 eras of Guam's history, right? The ancient Chamorro era, Spanish era, U.S. Naval World War II, post-World War II, Guamanian, and contemporary. So it's just small stuff, and then each one links to an entry on Guampedia. Really good way for them to explore. And then on the right side, we have celebrating our teachers and museums. May was Teacher Appreciation Month and Museum Appreciation Month. And so here we have a quick history of Guam's museums and how that's so connected to the teachers, to the teacher movement, right? So we have the Guam Teacher Association really laying the foundation, the groundwork for the first Guam museum to be made. Moving on to our next section, we have our media galleries. So this is a very big one in Guampedia. It's all the photos that we have available in Guampedia and maybe not available on the regular site. But we have these media galleries containing thousands of photos that are organized into various albums, and you can even be searched by keyword. So if we look at this main page, we have the About, Photo Stream, Faves, Galleries, and Groups. If you look under albums, you can see that they're broken up into eras in Guam's history or different topics in Guam's history. And this is also a really good way for you to click around and explore. But if you have an idea of what you're looking for already, the tip is here we have the search icon. Here above the first photo of the Finihi, you have that search icon. You really want to just click that first, and then it'll link to this top search bar. But what that does is it links your search results or your search key terms to the Guampedia database, right? So you'll be able to get specifically stuff from Guampedia. Each photo, when you click on it, provides a brief description of the photo itself, where the photo was procured, and who was who helped us in bringing it, right? So courtesy of. Applications of media galleries. So they provide a way for teachers to show students images of life during specific time periods, right? So here we're having here's a really good place for you to show your students what life was like, again, appealing to those visual learners in the classroom. You can have them just explore, go through them or go with them through finding search. And this is a really good way that I teach key terms to my students. So when searching, a lot of them, they don't know what to search. If I ask them to search up like an event or a time, just like on Google, they get lost. They're like, I don't know what to search. It's not pulling up any results. The media galleries is a really good way to really hone that skill of searching online, right? Finding specific key terms that you want and realizing that different key terms bring up different sets of photos. So maybe what you're looking for wouldn't be found under something like Chamorro culture, but maybe if you type Chamorro heritage, it can be something completely different. So a really good way for you to show students, the power of using key terms as you search and browse through the internet. They can also be used by students to create the visuals for projects they may need to do in classes. So a really good place to see photos of Guam's history throughout. Really good place. There's not a lot of these photos. A lot of these you can only really see physically at places like the Micronesia Area Research Center. So especially with Guam being, the world still being in the COVID-19 pandemic, this is a really good way to bring that museum experience or that archive experience into the class. Okay. Do we have any questions?
And of course to Shannon Murphy and Joe Kanata from the Guam Preservation Trust. And of course to the Humanities Guahan and National Endowment for the Arts and the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act for support in updating and enhancing Guampedia's digital resources for Micronesia students. And on behalf of Guampedia, our team, Sizuas Maasi for tuning in. We hope you found this program helpful and insightful in finding resources, digital resources that you can utilize in your classroom. Sizuas Maasi.